Urgent alert in 3, 2. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We have a lot of really urgent updates, and in the next week, I'm assuming that we're going to have a whole lot more. Of course, we have Trump says that he gave Iran ultimatum as U.S. prepares to evacuate citizens from Israel. I believe that in these three pieces, you will actually see that this is proof that something massive is about to go down. Not to mention, over the last 24 hours, we've had a lot of really crazy things go down, including last night, the MSM essentially saying that the president would come out and say something and had an urgent announcement, and then all of a sudden the White House saying, they've put a lid on for today, and he's not going to say anything. We have flight radar tracking stuff all over the place. It's just nuts. And then Trump says, of course, he gave this ultimatum, right? President Donald gave an ultimatum, of course, in his style, as he considers possibly ordering a U.S. strike against the Middle Eastern nation. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned such a move would be 100% a backfire move. Israel and Iran have been exchanging fire since the end of last week, fueling investor concerns over the supply outlook in the crude oil-rich Middle Eastern region. Donald on Wednesday said he gave Iran the ultimatum as he considers whether to order this U.S. strike. And it says, meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem began preparing for a large-scale evacuations of Americans who want to leave Israel. What does this say to you? So, you know, after the huge strike of hitting the army chiefs, the IRGC, of course, the nuclear scientists, and of course, the barrages that we saw, they're essentially saying that that's not even the big deal. Okay, now they're starting the large-scale evacuations. Before they said, you know, we're getting out the non-essentials out of Iran. Now they're getting the people out of Israel, as if they know that Iran has a whole lot more to do. Of course, everybody has kind of talked on social media like Iran is done, you know, that, they're in complete control. And, you know, of course, the president said we have, as in the United States and Israel, have complete control over the sky over Iran. And essentially said, you know, we've got good defenses, not, you know, theirs don't compare to ours, whatever else. And now he's giving an ultimatum. I mean, like, this is huge. Obviously, if they're doing large-scale evacuations out of Israel, they don't have too much faith in, the Iron Dome and David's sling and arrow system, right? Or they believe that something far more massive might be coming out of Iran. Again, I may do it. I may not do it. Of course, the president told reporters at the White House when asked if he would order the strike in support of Israel's ongoing bombardment of Iranian nuclear and military targets. It says, nobody knows what I'm going to do. He says, I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble and they want to negotiate. Now, by the fact that he is saying nobody knows what I'm going to do, that's a tactic. I'm sorry. I think that he is literally saying that because he wants to be the unpredictable one. He wants enemies to fear him and just go, yeah, that's true. They're going to talk about that statement. They're going to have experts and consultants in Iran and in other countries going, hey, this guy just literally said he is going to be unpredictable on this. He has always played this card, and that's why it works. With North Korea, North Korea quite a few years ago backed down because he was basically like, I'll wipe you off the face of the planet. And I think that North Korea actually believed him. Again, with this being said, this is a huge escalation. Urgent notice: American citizens wanting to leave Israel. U.S. Embassy in Israel is working on evacuation flights and cruise ship departures. You must enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP, which we've talked about before. You will be alerted with updates. Of course, STEP we talked about during previous evacuations right before huge, massive events. So yeah, it's getting crazy. We're going to talk about the regime possible collapse. This again, how it would hurt Russia in just a second. But I do want to remind you guys, there are devices in a company that is helping protect civilians and infrastructure alike. In fact, this company is the same technology that is going up with companies like DHS, DOD, the Dempster team, FBI. Of course, the government is quietly protecting themselves. Again, if you trust in situations like Hurricane Katrina in North Carolina and California and Hawaii, then you probably want to protect yourself. Go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Again, if you haven't heard about this, again, it is one of the best devices to protect your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, gas, and solar, and of course your home, ham radios, and even Ethernet now, even Starlink, against not only EMP strikes, but also a Carrington-level event from the sun. Again, go to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF to get $50 off per device, and, of course, to go check out that new Internet and Starlink model. All right, that's marfooglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use code MARF. All right, Dex, let's talk about the Iran regime. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Fugel fam. I'm doing just fine.
All right, so let's talk about with Russia and how this would play if the Iranian regime collapsed, which they're talking a lot about.
The Russian and Iranian foreign policy officials had arranged a meeting in Moscow for a conference titled Russia-Iran Cooperation in a Changing World, but they probably didn't anticipate how much change was actually about to happen. So, seated around the table on Wednesday at the presidential hotel near the Kremlin, the officials from both sides were forced to confront the stark new reality that the Iran's regime, which is obviously a key ally to Moscow, is facing serious threats. So, this is a challenge specifically for Russia as it relates to the fact that it has this position that it wants to be able to negotiate with the U.S. It doesn't necessarily want to go directly to war with the U.S. At least this is what the words coming out of Russia is saying. Nikita Smagman, an independent expert on the Russian-Iranian ties, said it's long been clear that Russia wouldn't defend Iran militarily because it's simply not prepared to risk a confrontation with Israel or the United States just for Iran's sake. It's kind of like what I was saying last night. Until there's something like that's really meaningful and valuable to Russia that they're losing, they're not going to get involved. They may use words, but they as much as we think that they're allies, they're not that close of an ally. Analysts say Moscow's cautious response reflects the cold political calculus of prioritizing its war in Europe there, while simultaneously trying to dissuade U.S. from direct involvement in a conflict that could lead to a regime change in Tehran. So this is also the other thing you think about. If this actually happens and a regime change happens and Russia loses favor with Iran, it's the second blow. Like Syria was the first one. This is even bigger, much bigger than what they had with Syria. If this goes down and they lose this, but it's obviously not something they're willing to go to war with. They're not willing to fight for it. So, but it will be a big loss to BRICS. It will be a big loss to Russia and to some extent China, for that matter, if the regime does fall and Israel and the West, prevail.
And they've been talking about a regime change. I believe they already have a leader, Rahlavi or Lababi, the son of the Shah, the late Shah, the last ruling party of course, Iran. They're already lining up him as the new king of Iran. A lot of folks are talking about this now. Again, he came out with this statement essentially saying, may I be with you in the future. And this is the time for us to step up and take back what's ours and that kind of speech. And then, of course, you have all of the talking heads across the planet are talking about, of course, a regime change right now. And then Israel is running low on missile interceptors as Iran proves a stronger foe than expected. Now, we don't know what the exact truth is because we're always being lied to, but this is something we've talked about for a very long time as far as missile interceptors and how, are these things unlimited? Iran has been planning this for a long time. We're going to talk about later that obviously some weird transport planes are actually heading into Iran. So they are most likely getting help from outside parties. And I'll just say they are getting help, in my opinion. Again, but following multiple rounds of Iranian missile barrages that have proven far more effective than many experts anticipated, if anybody even trusts experts anymore, the Israeli Defense Forces are already running low on defensive Arrow interceptor missiles, making Israel all the more desperate for the United States to join the war. Now, could this be a ploy just to be like, hey, we're running out of missiles, the U.S. needs to join, or at least for the public to go, well, yeah, we can't just leave them high and dry. You guys got to help Israel. Again, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government initiated Friday the 13th. Isn't it crazy that this all started going down on Friday the 13th? Against that backdrop, President Trump has been dialing up the intensity of his rhetoric as he pushes Iran to capitulate the demands that sees all uranium enrichment, a demand that Iran has long ruled out as a violation of its sovereignty, while insisting its nuclear program isn't focused on creating a weapon. The U.S. intelligence community assessed that be true. March unconditional surrender, exclaimed Trump in terse Tuesday social media post on Truth. Again, that post, they basically said, we cannot. And we're going to talk about that next. We're going to talk about the flight radar. It shows not only the Doomsday plane is up, it also shows Chinese planes helping out. Something is going on, something massive. Everybody can feel it. We're going to talk about that next. So make sure to join us over on Marfoogle TV. If you want to get there, all you have to do is follow the link down below, or if you're in the chat, just stay here. If you're watching the replay, all you have to do to get there is click here. We'll see you in just a few minutes over on Marfoogle TV.